We begin with a change at quarterback in the National Football League, and a bit of a surprise to some degree as the New York Giants, to nobody's surprise, have decided that Daniel Jones is going to ride the bench, most likely, it would appear, for the remainder of the season. And this could do it, as Jones's career has been checkered, to say the least, in New York. But a little bit of a surprise that Tommy DeVito is actually going to be the starting quarterback for the Giants. Drew Lock has been their backup for the majority of the season, but they do go to DeVito. And Jones certainly has had his fair share of fumbles and interceptions and not a lot of wins in his tenure as starting quarterback of the Giants. So Thanksgiving Day, we get Cooper Rush against Tommy DeVito. It's coming up next Thursday, 1 week from Thursday. All right, last night, if you went to bed and turned off the Sunday night football game between the Bengals and Chargers, you made a bit of a mistake, because the Chargers, up 3 touchdowns, let the Bengals come all the way back, or should I say Joe Burrow brought them all the way back. Chargers ended up winning this one by a final of 34-17. They do cover the spread, and this game flies way over the total. Underbettors at the half probably felt like they were in good shape. But nonetheless, Bengals with a huge game from Joe Burrow. Chargers with a nice game from Justin Herbert, of course. And there's no question at this point the Chargers look like a completely different team. Remember, the Chargers were that team in the past that would go up big and blow leads. But that did not happen yesterday. In fact, Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, supremely excited after the game, saying essentially the team never gave up and emotions were running high.
Great win! Great team win. It was awesome. Just because we lost the momentum didn't mean they had it, and we're gonna get it back. Guys just don't, didn't flinch, didn't buckle, didn't even stumble. Just kept right at it and responded. Says a lot. And it was like two heavyweights, going at it. I mean, they're a great football team, and like I said, our guys just kept playing, and I just been having this feeling really since the beginning. Back in April, May, June, that we got the right guys at the right time, and that's all a coach can ask for, and just keep building. That's what I thought.
Harbaugh's done a fantastic job first year as coach of the Chargers. Meanwhile, the Bengals are getting an MVP performance week after week from Joe Burrow and just not getting wins. Burrow, after the game, dejected, to say the least.
We are where we're at. I'm not happy with where we're at. I don't think anybody is, but all you can do is come back tomorrow and try to get better.
Has this been the most frustrating season you've ever had?
Yeah.
Why?
Pretty self-explanatory. I just think it was a tough loss. First half didn't go our way. We fought back, had our opportunities to seal the deal, and we didn't.
Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills keep on rolling. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City no longer undefeated. The lone remaining team in the NFL, so the 1972 Dolphins, only team in history to be perfect. Bills were 2.5-point favorites. An iconic moment, you would say, for Josh Allen, not running out on the field, but running into the end zone at the end of the game, running through players. The defense did a good enough job against Patrick Mahomes and company. After the game, a lot of discussion as to whether or not this was a signature win for Buffalo or if the game means more. But Josh Allen dodged all that.
It means we got to 9 wins. I know it's from perception, outside perception, it's a really big game and what it means for both fan bases and the league. We're in week 11. We're 9-2. Last time I checked, 9 wins probably doesn't get you in the playoffs. So, going into this bye week, you get to enjoy ourselves a little bit, but coming back ready, a hungry team and just trying to go 1-0.
And on the flip side, Patrick Mahomes takes his loss against the Buffalo Bills pretty seriously, but really no hanging of the head when you're off to such a good start and only lose 1 game.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it as fuel. I mean, like I said, it's a good football team, so nothing to hang your head on. I'm losing to them, but we feel like we can play better. So we'll get back to work and try to use this as a spark so that we can be a better football team in the end. And the undefeated thing was cool, but that's not our ultimate goal. So we'll keep building towards that. it's always a couple plays. I mean, like you said, the throw to Xavier, I keep that in bounds, get a touchdown on that drive. Maybe I call protection wrong, get a free rusher, and kind of stalls out a drive. Or if a play here or there, that's kind of the difference of these games that we're playing. It's not like, I mean, it's two good football teams, and today Josh makes the play, and we didn't. And so all credit to them, man. Like I said, it's a great football team, and it's all about a couple plays here and there that change the outcome of the game.
So if those two teams are not the favorite in the AFC, the third team has to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stop if you heard this one before. Ravens, Steelers playing a 3-point, 2-point game. Yep, happened again yesterday. Pittsburgh wins this one 18-16 behind 6 field goals in the game. Geno Smith, big game for him. Seattle goes to San Francisco and wins 20-17. Outright dog upset there. And the Chicago Bears lining up for a game-winning field goal against the Green Bay Packers. Had it blocked. Packers end up winning that game. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings, hey, I mean, they're maybe not the most exciting team in the NFL to date, but they just keep on winning. Their defense is playing great, 8-2 on the season now. They defeat the Titans 23-13 and cover that spread. Anthony Richardson returns to quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Had a really nice game, 28-27, had a very big fourth quarter as well. The Colts season moves on. The Jets season obviously over. The Rams get back to 500. They defeat the Patriots in New England 28-22. The Rams were 4.5-point favorites, so they cover there. And look out for the Denver Broncos. They win yesterday behind 4 touchdowns from Bo Nix. I mean, who saw that one coming? Broncos were only a 1.5-point favorite. They beat Atlanta yesterday 38-6. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins seem to be on a little bit of a run. They defeat the Las Vegas Raiders and now have won a couple of games trying to get back in playoff position. 34-19 the final there. The New Orleans Saints won their first 2 games, lost their next 7, and now have won 2 in a row again. They beat the Browns 35-14. And tonight on Monday Night Football, boy, do we have a bad game, folks. The Battle of Texas. Dallas Cowboys. Basically everybody hurt in this game. Taking on the Houston Texans, and Houston 7-point favorites in that one. All right, in college football, it's that time of the year. Teams start losing, and coaches start getting fired. Temple is going to fire their head coach, Stan Drayton, according to published reports. The Owls are just 9-25 on the season, in his career. In the AAC, it has not been a good run for Temple. Rarely do they have a good run. Oregon escapes Madison with a 16-13 win over the Wisconsin Badgers, and the Badgers are going to fire their offensive coordinator after that performance. So more bad news for the folks and fans in Wisconsin as Phil Longo is out as OC. Georgia beats Tennessee 31-17. The Gators upset LSU 27-16, and BYU finally lost a game. That line did look weird, folks, at the beginning of the week. Very short favorite. They lose to Kansas 17-13. In the NBA, the streak that just keeps going. I mean, this is really surprising at this point. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not just the best team in the NBA. They've won 15 games in a row to start the season, 128-114. Incredible start for them as they beat the Hornets. Zach Edey, unfortunately, suffers an injury in a win versus the Nuggets. For Memphis, Julius Randle has a buzzer beater to lead the Timberwolves to a 120-117 win over the Suns. And those of you who loved watching Inside the NBA on TNT for so many years, that show announced it is moving over to ESPN. So welcome back. We got Pat Evans in the house here on this Monday from Legal Sports Report. We'll actually touch on a sports betting taxes cut, which we have not talked about at all this year in sports betting, so that'll be interesting. Let's bring in Pat. Pat, welcome back to Newswire. Great to have you here on the show as we start off another week. And what's going on here in Texas? I mean, aren't we supposed to be moving more progressive toward the possibility of having sports betting become legal? Meanwhile, seems like they're removing some things for the equation. Tell us more.
Well, yeah, so the Kickapoo tribe, we can break down kind of what's happening on the sports betting, iGaming legislative side in a minute, but we'll get to the meat of the story here, which is the Kickapoo tribe sent a letter to a Senate committee saying, hey, you guys got to really reel in these lottery courier services. They argue, you can have these couriers that, sell a ticket and they can take the ticket to the house or whatever, but instead the Texas Lottery has rolled out actual, online lottery systems, which this tribe kind of suggests looks a lot like slot machines, from the apps, they call out DraftKings acquiring one. Well, they didn't spell out DraftKings, but they said a major sports betting operator has acquired one of these courier services, which would be DraftKings and Jackpocket, to kind of secure a market. And they argue this is unregulated gambling, an unregulated gambling expansion, that it kind of infringes on their tribal rights for their bingo rooms and the offerings that they're allowed to have there. And it was not an implicit, we're going to launch our own thing or expand our own casinos, but it was kind of underlying in this letter of, hey, if you're going to let this go unchecked, we might, kind of progress and do our own thing. But perhaps whether it's a casino, like a full-blown casino on their tribal land, perhaps online sports betting, perhaps online gambling, much like you guys have in Florida, through that kind of method. So it's an interesting move, and you're seeing kind of more and more, we can point to California, where the tribes are really kind of trying to round up the right way to do it for sports betting. And protect their gaming interests. And this is what Kickapoo is doing here in Texas, is saying, hey, we've got gaming. You guys are infringing on it by having this expansion that has not been, legalized explicitly. So that's where that's at. We'll kind of readdress Texas here in the sports betting realm. It's not going to happen this year. Maybe 2027 when a new governorship and kind of party platform of the Republicans is created. Right now, the Republican platform is pretty anti-gaming, especially Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who leads the Senate. He's said there's no traction at all. He might leave if he's somehow appointed to the Trump administration, but even so, his successor would also be anti-gaming. So very, tough road here in 2025, and they only meet every other year. So in terms of gaming expansion, we've got Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban very excited about it, very, lobbying to get it done, right. Whether it is sports betting or Cuban wants, the tourism of a casino resort. Texas is just a really interesting thing. And now you've got another party coming in with the tribal aspect saying, hey, let's figure something out and make this, the right way versus just kind of letting things happen.
Yeah. Hopefully this year we'll find some story of some state getting their act together and getting this going. Meanwhile, all right, this was a surprise to see that we're going to be talking about this. A state actually cutting sports betting taxes, Pat. I mean, around the country, this was our story here in 2024, was every state saying we're not getting enough money via sports betting taxes. Let's hike it up. Ohio going down here? How's that happen?
I know that's a really interesting kind of dynamic here, because Ohio is one of those states that came back and said, hey, we need to make more money from sports betting. Less than 6 months after they launched, the governor signed this 10% hike to Texas. It initially started at 10%. The governor signed into a budget with a budget line item that said, nope, let's get it up to 20%. And then now we've got a bill in a lame duck session that says, whoa, that was premature. Let's get it back to 10%. It's actually one of the main sports betting sponsors that originally passed it. And, we'll see if there's any traction. There was this gaming study that a bunch of legislators turned in this summer that also said the tax hike was premature. So, there are definitely parts of the legislator who say, no, let's get this done. Let's bring it back and see where we can, appropriately raise it in the future rather than just kind of willy-nilly doing it. But yeah, to your point, whether it's this year or next year, there's this tax level has been a huge discussion point in the sports betting industry. We've had Illinois also pass a tiered system that goes 20% to 40%, depending on the revenue levels of the operators. And that's up from their 15% initially. You've had a couple other states introduce stuff. We're talking right now, a Louisiana bill that was just introduced. It has been withdrawn now, but it jumped it from 15% to 51% to equal New York, which is kind of crazy. Even when you were listening to the discussion points, they were like, listen, the population in New York can sustain that. That's fine. Louisiana has nothing like that. We can't do that. The sponsor, he did, to his credit, and in the committee hearing, the first committee hearing of his bill, said, all right, I'm hearing a lot of pushback. I'm going to withdraw this. I'm going to listen to the feedback. We're going to work on this. We're going to make it a little bit better. So I do think at some point you'll see another bill probably next year in Louisiana that will raise a tax, probably not to 51%, but raise it up a little bit because they feel like they're getting a little shortchanged with how rapidly it's taken off. So, yeah, I mean, taxes, huge issue in sports betting, and then you get the arguments about competitiveness and everything else like that. So it's something that legislators, regulators, sports books are obviously going to keep an eye on, and it will be kind of a shifting, market here in the next year or two.
Yeah, and it's a really good point. Not every state has the kind of market cap like New York. Hard to, sort of convince people in Louisiana they got to be the same as the population in New York. So that's actually a really good point with the taxes. All right, so up in Canada, our friends are getting tired of seeing sports betting ads. That's got to be clear here. And I do wonder, Pat, if they are able to come up with some gambling advertising framework, whether that will trickle down here to the United States, because again, just like in Canada, I mean, I don't mind the ads, but I'm sure, we are getting bombarded each and every Saturday and Sunday with them on TV, radio, and everywhere else.
Yeah, this bill has been in the works since, last year. It's been a legislator came in and said, hey, there's way too many ads since its launch in 2022. And, that's a sentiment you hear in a lot of markets that have gone live. I heard it here in Michigan for a little while, but after a while it kind of subdues. So there's no specifics to this framework now. It's just saying, hey, let's get a framework that the entire country, the media ecosystem and sports betting ecosystem has to follow, and they can work on creating it later. A couple things of note, I want to read them here. A research group said that out of 28,000 ads reviewed this year, only 189 were gambling related. And that's down from 442 in 2022 when it launched. So, I mean, even in 2022, that's not a huge percentage of ads. You just have to think about where those ads are being played and when you're seeing them, probably during sporting events for the most part. So that's where you see them. That's where it kind of gets in your head and takes over. But there's already a framework in the works with the Canadian Gaming Association and a nonprofit called Ad Standards that they say everybody's going to follow. So even if this legislation doesn't pass, it does seem like there will be some sort of industry framework that kind of helps keep guardrails up and make sure everybody is happy about the advertising, glut.
All right, Pat, you back with us this week, or this is your lone appearance of the week?
I think this is my lone appearance this week, but I'll be back soon.
All right. Well, I will see you next week, hopefully before Thanksgiving. Thanks again for coming on Newswire.
Bye, Craig.